So just 6 games this round, but a couple of clashes of top 8 teams among them. Lots of incident, plenty of fire and brimstone. Let's check out the highs and lows of it all in Hot or Not. Okay, we're going to set a cracking pace today. You're off the rank.
I'm turning into a lover of the Essendon Football Club. I really like Rory Fantasia. He's lively. He's got a good tank on him. I know he's been playing mainly as a small forward. Kicked 4 goals, 4 on the weekend, and wasn't impossible that he had 4 or 5 by half time. Set up a couple of goals. Might be hard to pronounce. He almost sounds like an attraction at Disneyland, even though that's probably untimely. But the Rory Fantasia show is definitely going to carry on in 2017. He's going to be part of Essendon's best 22 when everybody's available.
Oh, absolutely. No, he's a gun. He's got great pace. They were using him exclusively as a small forward earlier in the season, but I reckon he might graduate into more midfield time, but he's seriously quick.
He's got a tank, and he has a crack. He tries things. Yeah, he's made a few errors, but I really like him as a footballer.
Yep, no, definitely on the improve. Good call, Finey. I'm starting with a hot 2, and it's at the other end of the experience spectrum. It's Jordan Lewis. Now, I reckon here's another player who's been undersold. He was absolutely sensational against North Melbourne last Friday night. Started his season fairly slowly, and I think a few people probably started saying, he's getting a bit long in the tooth. But his last month has been unbelievable. I did a few sums, or as many as my brain's capable of, and he's averaged 34 disposals in the last 4 games. He's just been terrific. I don't know why we're now looking at... there he is again, previous game. Sorry, that was silly of me. That's those stupid white things they're wearing. Looks just like the Power Rangers outfit. But look, he gets he lives in the shadows a bit of Hodge and Mitchell, doesn't he?
Not for mine.
But he's
I reckon he's a champion. Yeah. And he really lifts against North. He's sort of on the angry pill sometimes against North.
He was last year, yeah.
Not just last year. There's been a couple of times where, I think 3 times he's been reported and either suspended or received fines against North Melbourne. I don't know whether it's something about their midfield or something about the old rivalry, Hawthorn and North Melbourne.
I reckon he's been watching the final story about the 1975 grand final and got
Goes
fired
back
up a bit. Your turn.
Well, you asked me what I thought about split round football. It's not hot. It's not hot at all. 6 games of football used to cut the mustard when I was a kid, and they played them all simultaneously. But there's just not enough depth of good football. So when you've got 6 games and a couple of them are all interstaters, I know that's very Melbourne-centric, but you probably got to have to be a real keen footy fan to love Brisbane versus West Coast. Fremantle, Port Adelaide, Essendon, GWS. It's just not around for mine. 3 weeks of this, I don't like it. Cut it down to 2, maybe even try and thinking of having a week off and no buys whatsoever, but definitely cut it down to 2 next year, AFL.
Well, I'll stick up for him on this one because this debate happens every year, and we've had that many discussions about, what's the best format, and they have literally tried every combination. We've had, back in the days when there were 8 games, we've had 7-1, 6-2, 5-3. I quite like the evenness of the 6, 6 and 6.
I don't.
So what, do you think everyone's better with a week off?
Everybody, maybe have an entire week off, just take a week off from football and use it to celebrate local football, really have the AFL supporting local football, have players go back to their original clubs and make a bit of a festival of that, or down to 2 weeks, because 3 weeks of this is too much, for mine anyhow.
Okay, I've got a not next, and it's Port Adelaide. And I'm a bit down on the Power and have been for a while, and this performance against Fremantle sort of underlined why, because their form's been reasonably solid for quite a while now. They've built up a reasonable head of steam. This was a game they had to win. Now, I know the Dockers are playing a lot better now, and I know it's in Perth, but the Power have won games there before. They won a final there. If they were to have any chance of staying in the race to the 8, they had to win this game. And I wouldn't say they didn't look like. I mean, the Fremantle basically kept them at arm's length. I never got the feeling that Port were really a winning chance once Freo established that break. And it continues the form really that they've shown, the patchiness, since mid-2014. So we're now talking about a 2-year time span where, they've won a couple, lost a few. They haven't been that Port Adelaide that we keep talking about and waiting to re-emerge now for 2 years. So I guess my point is that is the real Port Adelaide, not the Port we saw in the first half of 2014.
I think what's really problematic with them is their midfield. It's overrated. Travis Boak hasn't been a powerful footballer for a couple of seasons. Hartlett, there's questions on him. And I want to ask you this. With their midfield operating at half rat's pace, can they afford the luxury of having the champion, Chad Wingard, sitting in a forward pocket on a half-forward flank for 4 quarters?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. No, that's a good call.
Why doesn't he run into the midfield? Anytime he does, he seems to be a pretty effective footballer.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that Ken Hinckley could sit there watching that game and their season drain away and have Wingard sitting in the forward pocket.
Yep, no, fair call. Okay, your turn.
This one's a little bit counterintuitive because my hot is cold. It's cold, wet weather football. You can stick your roof at Etihad. There is honestly, there is nothing better for mine than a good wet weather clash. We're watching Sydney versus Melbourne here. There were some great skills in the wet. Buddy kicked 4 goals. Dean Towers kicked a couple of beauties. I love seeing good wet weather football, and that's what we had with Sydney and North Melbourne.
Yeah,
Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah, bit too wet for mine, but I know where you're coming from. I did all those, winter afternoons in the outer. I want a comfy chair now.
Do you like Max Merritt and the Meteors?
Oh, when I was 5.
Because you can play the footage of that game to
slide in the weed.
Exactly, you got
all right,
that.
My last one now. Any excuse to burst into song on this show. My one, last one is a not. It's a Western Bulldogs. Look, bit harsh. I think they've been admirable all year, the way they've held up in the face of injury. But really, they got taken to the cleaners by the Cats. I thought the Cats were cleaner, they were more efficient. Most importantly, they had a productive forward set up, and that has been the Achilles heel for the Dogs all year, really, and it continues to be. I think they've got some big decisions to make about bringing Tom Boyd back, because I don't think having Redpath as basically your sole key position player plus stringer is working, and having a rotating squad of midfielders. They just can't conjure enough goals. 10th for points scored. You've got to have more firepower than that if you're aspiring to win a flag, and they need to fix up those forward issues quick, smart.
Yeah, I mentioned about Redpath last week. He just doesn't have the tank to exploit backman and run for a full game yet. Maybe next year, but not this year. It's $1 million a year question, isn't it, Tom Boyd? And I reckon you're quite right. Bring him back and see what he can add to the mix, because they need to score more. Good point, Ron.
Well, we have got the tank, and we're going to use it.